I was originally going to name my first video the Holy Trinity of Bad Directors or something like that, but I had others just as infamous I was thinking of while making that video. It doesn't really matter if you haven't seen my other video, just know that I'm going to be ranting about some bad directors who made multiple bad films yet still raked in the fucking cash. Let's get into it. When the topic of the boom of CG animals from the late 90s to early 2010s is brought up, who are you reminded of? The director that I'm thinking of basically started the entire trend. If it weren't for him, we couldn't have gotten such masterpieces as Garfield, A Tale of Two Kitties, The Smurfs 2, Alvin and the Chipmunks, The Road Chip, and Marmaduke. Oh fuck, that movie's so fucking good. We owe the creation of all of those movies to one man. If you grew up in the mid-2000s, you know his name, Raja Gosnell. Sorry, that happens when his name's mentioned. Back in the 80s, he was just an editor for actual good films like Home Alone and Mrs. Doubtfire and Miracle on 44th Street. Oh, wait, hold on. Oh, he edited the really bad 90s one, not the original one. Never mind. He made his directorial debut, his monumental first film, Home Alone 3, in 1997. You know, the one without Kevin McAllister. Contrary to popular belief, this film was in fact in theaters and made $80 million. People didn't really like it, but hey, we still got the TV movie Home Alone Holiday Heist from it, so thank you, Raja Gosnell, for that. You've done your job, now fuck off. Goodbye. If only he did. He instead went on to make films for the next decade and is still doing so today. After he was done ruining Home Alone, he began to receive critical acclaim for his next film, Saving Private Ryan. No one's gonna believe that. He made Big Mama's House.
Mama. Yeah? What's that?
That's just, my flashlight.
Those films where the narrator in the trailer says stuff like, "You don't mess with people in Big Mama's house." You know, this kind of shit you'd hear in the trailer for an Adam Sandler movie. Not that Big Mama's house is anywhere near Billy Madison. It's closer to, say, Little Nicky. The film itself was one of only 4 movies released on the enhanced versatile disc, which was supposed to replace DVDs but never caught traction. Honestly, it's a perfect fit. Bad idea, very short-lived, and almost no one wants to remember it even when it's brought up in conversation. I say short-lived because despite the franchise continuing, no one really wanted it to. After that, Roger was just sitting in his office and thought, hey, why don't I ruin another franchise? And then the Scooby-Doo movie was made. Possibly unpopular opinion, most Shaggy Rogers memes that came from this movie aren't funny. This movie in general is not funny. The only good thing about this movie was how they made Scrappy the villain because he's a little piece of shit. Other than that though, I hated him being in the film as well. I don't think I even need to mention the CG. It's bad. It was the first of its kind and it started a horrific revolution in live-action animated movies. But what's really a shame about this film is this was the last film William Hanna, one of the creators of Hanna-Barbera, ever produced. What a fucking legacy to end on. Almost like how the Tom and Jerry movie where they talk, sing, and become friends was artistically consulted by Joseph Barbera. Scooby-Doo 2 came next, nothing of note to say there, other than James Gunn, the director of Guardians of the Galaxy, writing the film, and Seth Green being in there for some reason as Velma's love interest. Raja, he still wants to get his greedy little hands on any property he can, so he teamed up with Nickelodeon to make Yours, Mine, and Ours with Drake Bell of Drake and Josh fame. I hate to sort of repeat myself, but it's one of those movies that's like, they're total opposites, and they love each other so much because of it. The kids of each other don't want them to get together because they don't like each other, so sabotage ensues. You're gonna be hearing blank ensues a lot in this video. The only thing about this film that's different from every other romantic comedy is there are 18 children, breaking barriers there. Pig is also there for comedic relief in this comedic movie. Moving on. Now I'm getting into my childhood, and I really don't want to bring it up, but I sort of have to since, you know, I'm doing this whole thing. In my childhood, there was no movie I remember being played at school more than Beverly Hills Chihuahua, unless you count VeggieTales. Check out this description. The plot centers on a female Chihuahua named Chloe who gets dognapped in Mexico and has to escape from an evil Doberman, El Diablo, with the help from a lonely German Shepherd, Delgado, and a hyperactive male Chihuahua, Poppy, who has a desperate crush on her. Other than the name El Diablo being the worst, most overused name for any Mexican thing ever, the plot is kinda dumb. Not only the whole dog napping thing, but later on in the film, there's this thing where the dogs go to find other Chihuahuas living in Aztec ruins, and one of the dogs proclaiming Chihuahuas are from Aztec descent. Then the guy dog, voiced by George Lopez, is captured instead of the girl, but the reason the girl was taken in the first place was because her owner was filthy rich. This dog's owner is the gardener for that woman. Oh, by the way, the main character's gardener is Mexican and has the same sort of crush relationship on the girls as the dogs did. There was also also a duo of a CG mouse and a CG iguana who stole jewelry and were the comic release for the film. They didn't really serve any bearing on the story, they just sort of took up time, but I did realize that the CG on them and the dogs looked sort of passable, so I checked what studio did the effects, and it's the same studio doing the VFX for the Avengers movies, another big Hollywood productions, which I found kind of funny.
Speaking of bad CG by a big company, you kids ever heard of a film called The Smurfs?
The Smurfs is that classic taking a property everybody remembers and having the story be them coming to our world. You give all the characters celebrity voices like George Lopez again, Katy Perry trying to get into acting which she didn't, and Jonathan Winters because if he'll do Rocky and Bullwinkle, he'll literally do anything. Neil Patrick Harris is your average ad executive about to propose to his girlfriend when he gets a little surprise in a box. Together with his new blue friends, he needs to get them home with the help of product placement before Hank Azaria can offend dumbasses with his Apu voice. The Smurfs fell through a portal to our world, and to get them back, they need to travel to places like the supermarket, Times Square, and Neil Patrick Harris's bedroom where they can play Guitar Hero. If this premise sounds dumb to you, it's because the coming to our universe / New York trope for live-action kids adaptations has existed since the 80s.
Let's see, we got Fat Albert, Masters of the Universe, the Garbage Pail Kids, Enchanted, Underdog, Alvin and the Chipmunks, Garfield,
And that's just off the top of my head. 85% of live-action cartoon movies involve going to our universe in New York at the very least. Unfortunately, that was Raja Gosnell's most popular film yet, making over $500 million in sales. And when you make that kind of money, there has to be a sequel. The whole gang's back together for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. When Hank Azaria brings the Naughties back to life, Neil Patrick Harris has to deal with his father creating issues. But what's this? The Naughties start to like the Smurfs, and it's only a matter of time until the "you tricked us, Voldemort" moment, but we know these guys are gonna be able to work things out in the end. Okay, the thing is, I haven't actually seen this movie, just the trailers, but I'm sure for those of you who have seen it, I've predicted it correctly. I've had a hard time just looking at this terrible CG. There's only one more movie left in his filmography. What is it? Show Dogs? That movie with the deleted ball-touching scene? Let me explain. Show Dogs was released last year about a dog voiced by Ludacris going undercover at a dog show while his partner Will Arnett is trying to save a panda from some gang members. Confusing, I know. Anyways, within the film, Ludapup has to enter a dog show where his family jewels are groomed, so to deal with it, he has to go to his happy place and not think about it. Can you understand why this had some backlash? To think that a team of writers came up with this idea for this scene, this plot point in the film, and believed it was entirely suitable for its audience. Raja, what the fuck were you thinking? You went through this whole film with this obvious underlying seeming message, and you thought it was perfectly suitable. Other than that one scene, though, there's basically nothing at all to say about this film. It's just kinda dumb. Not even main brand dumb. It's an alternative spin-off for hippies. Yeah, Gosnell is just a talentless director with no flair looking for some cash. He should have just stuck to editing, which he did quite a bit of, actually. His movies are honestly more interesting than he is. He has no style, unless you count making bad live-action movies as a style. Speaking of that, now I'm going to talk about someone who's made good things before, but is more similar to Gosnell than you might originally believe. I feel some regrets about talking about this guy because he had a good impact on my childhood. He was the writer, storyboard artist, and story editor for the SpongeBob movie, and trust me, I fucking adore that movie. You might even say if it weren't for Tim Hill, we wouldn't have gotten Hasselhoff's best cameo ever. He is, or at least was, a mostly good writer, but he is a terrible director. Irregardless, he is much more bad than good. He may be the director and writer for the next SpongeBob movie, and despite his current resume, I have some hope for it since he can write, but on the other hand, Tim Hill was the guy who brought the Chipmunks back from the dead. I can only assume he got the idea when he had a 33 record and decided to turn it up to 45. Everyone knows there isn't difficulty in making a Chipmunks album. The process I just described is most likely what seriously happens. In the movie, Alvin and his brothers have their tree chopped down and taken to New York, where they end up meeting Jason Lee, a songwriter who just got turned down for a big opportunity. He was turned down by David Cross, the best fucking character across the entire franchise, also the worst treated out of the entire cast. Alvin and his brothers get Jason Lee a deal with David Cross, and the boys start to like David Cross more because Jason Lee can't say that these chipmunks are his family. The chipmunks realize too late that David Cross is a bad guy, and they end up in a cage, so Jason Lee needs to save them because he loves them. These movies are starting to
to clash more and more in plot, I swear.
CG still looks bad as always from these lovable movies. Jim Hill did make one other film about a hairy testicle before Alvin, and it was called Garfield, A Tale of Two Kitties. Now, I don't want to say how shit of a movie this is. Trust me, I could go on for days about how much it doesn't make any sense and is a definite cash grab, but Tim Curry is in it. I don't care what movie I'm watching, I cannot say how bad it is if it has Tim Curry in it. It is too much of a godly force for me to say anything negative. Plus, this has Bill Murray feeling dead inside, and who doesn't love that? If I had to say one negative about Garfield, A Tale of Two Shitties, it's that Tim Curry's character didn't get enough screen time. I think we should put all of Tim Curry's miscellaneous characters in their own movie in which they can go on a magical adventure. Fox has turned me down 2 times, but hey, Warner Brothers, if you're listening, I've got $5 with your name on it if you're interested. Call me. If you had one Illumination film you could exterminate, which would you choose? The Beginning of the End, Despicable Me, the hypocritical and badly written Lorax, Toy Story, American Idol, possibly? For myself, it'd no doubt be Hop. Russell Brand is supposed to be the Easter Bunny, but he's like, no, Dad, I want to be a drummer. Also, I'm a Scientologist, flat earther, and listen to Rage Against the Machine, old man. I don't believe in Peter Pan, Frankenstein, or Superman. All I want to do is go to Playboy Mansion in Hollywood. Why don't you crawl back into your rabbit hole with Mel Blanc and listen to your classical music?
The bunnies live on Easter Island because of course they do, and drive a sleigh powered by chicks on Easter because Illumination wants Easter to be the next Christmas. Mexican chicks voiced by Hank Azaria try to stage a coup while EB goes off to try and find success. We can tell how radical EB is by his flannel shirts, want to go against the system, and ability to play rock band, which sounds a little bit too familiar. He also shits jelly beans, but I think that's more for the DeviantArt if you know what I mean. ER gets to Hollywood and decides to team up with a deadbeat son. His name isn't important, he's a deadbeat son who needs to redeem himself to his parents. You wouldn't remember the name if I said it. Well, team up is a bit of a strong word. The guy just nearly kills EB and lets him live with him. Hijinks ensue as the animal tries to live with a human. Again, never heard that before. EB wants to go to a talent show, and who else but fucking David Hasselhoff? I guess Tim Hill kept his number on speed dial after the SpongeBob movie. You think EB is gonna win the talent show and impress David Hasselhoff? Nah, this film can't have a coherent story. He dips, and the entire talent show story is just, swept under the rug. Now Stoner Deadbeat's gonna become the Easter Bunny, so EB doesn't have to and just can go fuck off to MySpace with all the other washed up musicians. Somewhere in there, Stoner Deadbeat is kidnapped by a group called the Pink Berets, who think Stoner here killed EB when really he just faked his death. Mexican chick takes over the factory and turns into a weird bunny chick hybrid, and EB comes to save the day, cause he's a hero, motherfucker. EB stops Hank Azaria, and Stoner Deadbeat becomes the Easter Bunny along with EB, so basically the entire conflict about EB not wanting to be the Easter Bunny was all for naught. Who gives enough of a fucking Illumination to want to make an ending with hints of sense? Thanks so much for this movie, Tim Hill. Only half of the movie was taken from your other works. Truly, an Easter movie to remember. I was going to talk about this last movie Tim Hill wrote and directed, but I feel like I have too much self-respect to watch a Lifetime original movie, so I'm just going to comment on the concept itself. Grumpy Cat should never have fucking gotten a movie. I refuse to do any research on a film that clearly gave up the moment it was conceptualized. The funniest thing about this movie is its cover. Grumpy's first original movie. How many sequels were planned for this fucker? Must have gone down the drain like Doug's second movie. Worst Christmas movie ever isn't really what you want to call your Christmas film. It sounds like a bad omen. The closest I came to watching this movie was reading the Wikipedia plot summary. It's just a you can talk and only I can understand you kind of movie. Kidnapping is involved somewhere. You've seen the Detective Pikachu trailer. It's probably that. Don't pick up this movie. Don't support the people who made this. Just go and watch the Emoji Movie on Netflix so you don't support them either. Tim Hill is set to direct and write the next SpongeBob movie. I have hope, but it's a dwindling, almost flickered out hope. I'm gonna end this video here. I need to watch a good movie to remember what those are like. Goodbye.